because if they do, that means you need help. So I'll explain in this talk. Spirits have the ability to communicate with us if the need arises, and that's the key point there, if the need arises. If we don't hear from spirits, it is either because our minds are so cluttered with our day-to-day living that they can't get through to us, or we are actually following our life's paths and we don't need correcting. Things are going right. No course correction is required. An example with me is when I was helping a mentally ill person for several years, and it was taking a toll on me. I felt the guilt of letting go, and so remained in contact with her when my friend Bob Ferguson gave me a message from his guides. I needed to separate myself from her. They weren't going to say anything and let nature take its course, but I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. So they conveyed the message through Bob Ferguson, who related to me. And as Bob would say, you can help a lot of people, or you can help her. So I needed to back off. So had I followed through on what I was supposed to do, I would have never received that message. Do you see how spirits will sit back and watch what we do, but if we start to go astray, they may need to intervene to keep us on track. In another case, my friend who was a psychic and could tell when he needed my friend was a psychic and could tell what needed correcting. But what if we don't have the access to a medium to tell us these things? Then spirits must use their ways to reach us. We may get a gut feeling or a hunch that affects our decision making. One day, I was driving home from work, and my plan was to meditate when I got home. I tried to get on the freeway, but the traffic at that moment was blocking me from getting to the on-ramp. So I ended up taking a boulevard to get home. I was about to pass a gas station when my car actually ran out of gas. I was able to restart the car, and the station was up on a hill, so that meant all the gas went to the rear of the tank, which was good because that's where the intake was. I got up on the hill and pulled in, I was able to get gas. I refueled, went home without incident. Were I able to get on the freeway, it would have consumed more gas, and I would have run out of gas a couple miles away from the gas station. So rather than doing a meditation, I would walk a couple miles and go buy a gas can, fill it with gas, then walk back to the car. Usually I can get on the freeway no problem, so this was interesting. Was that an intervention of spirit? It could have been, but as usual, we discount the notion and move on with our lives, wondering why we never hear from our spirits. I was listening to a coast-to-coast recorded episode that I had, and Scott told the story of how he related an experience he had of his father, with his father, who had died, but communicated to him in spirit with his uncle. As he finished his story with his uncle, he said, I guarantee that my father's here right now in spirit because I have been talking about him. His uncle is a collector of hats, and one of the hats suddenly fell off its hook to the floor. John suspected it was his father and picked up the hat, which said Air Force on it. His dad was in the Air Force. He put the hat back on the hook among some 500 hats that were on this wall, all from different places. Then 2 hats fell off, the Air Force hat and a Marine's hat. His dad had also been a Marine. This was a case in which Spirit just wanted them to know that he was there. A more serious case is when a trucker had accidentally gone off the road into some bushes, trees and bushes. By the time he stopped, he could not see the truck. By the time he stopped, he could not see the truck. You could not see the truck from the road. There we go. Eventually, a state trooper came along and pulled over. He found the truck and the driver and commented, "It's a good thing that you gave me directions on the CB radio or I would have never found you." The driver looked back at him. "I don't have a CB radio." Interesting. Spirit had managed to relay a voice on a radio that the state trooper could hear. The Wolverton family was on vacation and driving down to Florida. This was in the 50s, so this is an old story. They were driving along a mountainous road when the family distinctly heard a voice, "Look out." They thought that was the kids playing around. doing some kind of prank or something, but they swore that it wasn't them. The daughter thought it was the radio, so the father started tuning the radio when he heard it again. Look out! Well, the family was so shocked by this, but they decided to pull over. Around a sharp turn in the road came a car driving at high speed in the wrong lane. Had they not pulled over, there would have been a terrible accident. Here's where Spirit had to step in to prevent an accident that was not supposed to be part of the family's experience, and likely would have ended their lives permanently, prematurely. It was dire enough that the Spirit's voice was audible to everyone in the car. This shows that Spirit is capable of communicating in this way, but it tends to be as a last resort, that this is not a normal way for spirits to communicate with us. Another voice story is a woman who was stuck in her car, in her home, when a tornado hit. She used the piano as a shelter from the onslaught of the winds and the debris. During this, she heard a voice, "Put out your hand." She was not about to put out her hand in the middle of the storm, but the voice was persistent. And she finally worked up the courage to put out her hand. At that moment, a pillow that was lying around the room went past her, and she grabbed it. She pulled it back and used it as a barricade to fill in the gap between the piano and the wall. Then there was a sound of breaking glass, and shards were flying all around, many of them into the pillow, stopping it from hitting her. You can imagine what would have happened if the woman did not follow what the voice instructed. Does anyone remember the actress Lindsay Wagner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She was popular on the TV series Bionic Woman. It's been a long time for me too, but I remember that. She was about to board a flight with her mother when she had the overpowering dread to not get on that flight. Instead of walking onto the jetway, she escorted her mother away from the plane. The plane took off without them, flipped over and fell out of the sky. Over 200 people were killed. Spirit was able to intervene, but not by voice. Instead, they infused her with an uneasiness that made her uncomfortable until it changed her mind to get on the flight. You may be thinking, what about all those other people? Why weren't they saved? It is possible that some of them were warned, but they ignored whatever feeling that they had. It is more likely that this was their exit point, and that this had been planned for them, and so the intervention was not necessary. A Baptist church in Nebraska had a gas leak and blew up. The church blew up. It was in the morning, and the pastor turned on the heat so the church would be warned for a choir practice that was to occur. The explosion occurred at 7:30, about the time the choir members would have been inside. Only none of them were there. At that hour, one member was engrossed in a TV program, and so was late. Another, the car wouldn't start. That meant that she couldn't pick up 3 other members. Another was writing a letter and didn't notice the time had slipped by. Each member had something happening that made them late for practice. Now you might surmise that this was just a coincidence with some of them, but all of them? Spirit influence has to be in play. In Wyoming, a deranged terrorist built a bomb in a shopping cart and took it to an elementary school where he took children as hostage in a room with the intent to blow them up. During the takeover, many of the children received visions of spirits telling them to move away to another part of the room. Once they had moved, the bomb accidentally went off, killing the terrorists, but none of the children died. I have talked at church about my incident in which I was suddenly in so much pain that I couldn't walk. After a few moments, it passed, and I was able to move again, but it delayed me from the walk that I intended to take. I came upon an arrest scene, which looked like it had just been in the middle of the arrest as it happened. The sudden pain and release were not normal, but appeared to be the work of Spirit in order to delay me so that I would not be involved with that. I was wondering if I had been there on time, would anything bad would have happened to me? Because you don't really know. But if Spirit was willing to intervene to do that, you know something bad was about to happen. As you can see, there are several ways spirits can intervene when it is deemed necessary. Spirits normally convey themselves in a more subtle way and leaving some impression. We just have difficulty recognizing. But in a dire emergency, subtle will not suffice. Our spirit guides are looking out for us, and if a case calls for it, they will let us know. It is up to us to pay heed to the warnings and in the process, possibly save our own lives. So you can see how if you're not getting these messages, it's probably because you're okay. But if you were in a dire emergency, they would try to get through to you somehow. One other case that I wanted to bring up was that this is the second time that Spirit had warned me to change what I was going to do. The first time it was actually at a flea market. And at the flea market, I was walking up and down the aisles like I normally do, when I suddenly felt a pain in the center of my chest. And I thought, okay, that's weird. Then it happened again. And I began to suspect that Spirit was trying to tell me something. When it happened a third time, it's okay, whatever it is I'm doing, it's putting me in danger. So I changed my course and I avoided the last row. And then I went home, everything was fine. I talked to my friend Bob Ferguson. He told me that was your Spirit warning you. Had you not paid heed, you were going to get in some kind of trouble. We don't know what trouble that it was, but it was going to happen. And he said, if I ignored that pain in my chest, they would have made me sick. They would have done something, anything to prevent that from happening to me. So Spirit, when they need to, they can get the message across if it's a dire emergency. So thank you. That has been taught.
Thank you.